This lady has sold over 10,000 homes. Just to put that into context, the average realtor last year sold 6. I am beyond excited. Today, I literally am bringing you my hero. And I don't say that lightly. I really don't say that lightly at all. I have been to countless seminars and speakers and spent thousands and thousands of dollars getting education from people everywhere I can go. And only one time in all those speakers, there's probably been at least 50 people that if I said their names, you would know it, that I have seen. And this one lady grabbed my heart and I stood in line to go meet her. And this has been a minute ago, like a very long minute ago. I don't remember how long. Fell in love with her and who she is. This lady has sold over 10,000 homes. Just to put that into context, the average realtor last year sold 6. So without further ado, Marty Hampton, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Carol. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to see you. Computer, face to face.
Yes, mano a mano.
Got it.
So we met at a RE/MAX convention. I don't remember how many years ago, honestly. It's
got at least 9 or 10, 8 maybe.
I'm thinking it's been a decade. I'm thinking it's been a while. And your story moved me so much from stage that I really wanted to bring you to our listeners because you can teach us so much. And I want you to kick our butts, Marty. I don't want you to hold back. I want you to be real about what it takes and that no one has excuses. If you don't have excuses, no one has excuses. So let's start with where you were born.
Oh, I was born in North Carolina. But I've lived in 6 different states. So I was born in the mountains of North Carolina, raised kind of in the Piedmont section. And now I live in Raleigh, Cary. It's called the Triangle part of North Carolina. Okay. But I've lived in other states. I've lived in Georgia. I've lived in Colorado. I've lived in a lot of places.
Where's your favorite? Well,
North Carolina. That's the reason God has got the sky Carolina blue, after all.
Okay. Good to know. I'm going to have to make a visit out there. That's one of the few places that I haven't been that is really on my bucket list. So I'll have to check it out.
Show you around. There's some good places to go.
Well, I'm sure. And I will be hitting you up. Hey, where do I go? What do I do? So you started your life in the mountains. What was it like being a child in the mountains in North Carolina?
You want to go back that far, really?
just real quick, just kind of quick at the beginning and then move on.
I was born to a very poor family, and my mother and my father worked in a factory. And I remember when I was a very small child, before I started school, I lived up, I'm sure you've heard of Loretta Lynn. She wrote a song called The Coal Miner's Daughter. Well, we didn't mind coal, but we definitely lived up in a holler. And it was a mountainous area where when you go up on there, everybody was kin to me. So I grew up for the first 5 years of my life being the only girl in a pack full of like probably 10 cousins that were all boys. So I was quite spoiled for at least 5 years of my life.
Oh, and how nice. How nice.
Yeah, that was nice. And it was family, and it was the way it should be. After that, my father and mother moved because of his profession. He became a long haul truck driver, and they moved to the Piedmont section. And that's kind of where everything fell apart. My father fell into alcoholism. My mother was very codependent. So they stayed married until I was probably 12 or 13 years old. And then they divorced, and my mother went back to the mountains, not the same place, but a different place. And it was, from that point in time, I pretty much looked at my mom. I'm about 5'8". I'm a very tall woman, and my mother was about 5'2". And I looked down at her and I said, I'm grown. And she looked up at me and believed it. And I pretty much left home when I was 15.
So yeah, I read that in your bio, and that's where I was going with all this was you're a 15-year-old girl and you're like, I'm out.
Well, when you're raised with a codependent, you see them being codependent, and you figure one of two ways. You're going to either go that way or you're going to say, I'm not doing that ever. And so that was kind of, I was going to go the opposite way. Little did I know that psychology would play, and all these things that had happened to me during my childhood would come back to visit me when it came to making life choices that were very, very important. And they messed me up for quite a few years, is all I can say. I made some real dinger bad choices for many, many years. But real estate was something that, I kind of looked around after making a couple of those bad choices, and I was in my 20s. I was really 25 years old, and I had 3 children under 5. And I looked around, I said, had another failed marriage. And I said, what in the world am I going to do to raise these children? I didn't have a college education. So I said, maybe I'll get into real estate. So I went and got my license. And really, I think it was a gift from God, to tell you the truth, because it was a way that somebody without a formal education could work really hard and could attain something that they couldn't attain in a 9-to-5 working for state government or something else. So it was a gift to me. And it has been all of my career. I've never really lost the love of what the industry can do for a humble person that's willing to work hard.
Golly, that's it right there. We could just stop the podcast. That wasn't what the point of the podcast was, but it's so true. Oh my goodness. It is. It's the ultimate equalizer, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. If you work hard, you can't not succeed.
Right. It's not about who you know now. It is about who you know as you go, because we were going to talk about that, about relationships. And let's just hit that while we're there. How important have relationships been in your meteoric rise to where you are? That where you are right now, people, there's no way they can't, that, right? I mean, you realize that people can't imagine what you've accomplished in the life that you have created.
Well, I don't know. I think people get into real estate with some big hopes and dreams, but they find out it's a little bit tougher than they thought, and they don't have the stickability or I could never turn my back on it because I had 3 kids to raise. I had had to pay the monthly bills. I had to buy the braces. I had to go to the doctor with those children and do all the things that we do as a parent. I had to do both ends. So it was just a blessing to me. That's all I can tell you.
My goodness. When you told the story from stage all those years ago, you talked about having I think you said a Sears credit card for gas. Was it Sears?
It was at that point in time. We live in a town that had a big mall, and Sears was at one end of the mall. And for some reason, I was able to get credit, which when credit probably wasn't a good thing to give me. And I had a limit of $300. And that $300, I'd go and get my car filled up with that $300, and I'd use it to sell real estate. And the other thing that about those early years is I've told this. I don't know whether I told it from stage or not. This is deep secret. I had one ring that was, it wasn't anything really valuable, but it was enough that I could take to a pawn shop and get $125 off. And so many, many times I pawned that ring in order to get $125 to feed my family until the next commission. Just goes to show you groceries have gone up.
You just took me the whole different direction there.
It's true.
It's very true. It's very true. I just want people, like we on this podcast interview people from all walks of life, and I want people to that have this false belief that all successful people are just lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, I get why that is, right? Because you're telling me that it is possible, and all I have to do is work. Well, that can't be true, because then it's on me. So what you're saying can't be true. You have to be lucky, or how could you do it and I couldn't? Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's some psychology there, but even today, in your world today, like, is life just a bowl of cherries? Is it really easy?
Oh, no, it's not. It has its challenges, but I was actually listening to something the other day. It was talking about being in the right time, right place. And we used to have a saying in real estate: show up, pay attention, tell the truth, and don't get attached to the outcome. And so what I try to train my agents really, Kara, is to say, please just get passionate about the process of being a great agent, and let go of the outcome. Do the best you can. Just show up, make the calls, ask the right questions, find out where the people are at, and then don't get attached to the outcome. Because see, emotion is, I think, what kills a lot of agents in this business, because I had my struggles with it for sure. And the emotionality of, it's going to be a deal, it's going to be a deal. Oh, no, it's not a deal. That up and down roller coaster is just so hard. And I was a very emotional person because of the background that I came from. So I hope that helps somebody, because, if you keep on showing up, you're going to be at the right time, at the right place. You can't not do that. So I hope that helps somebody.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I'm sure there are countless people who can relate to you and relate to your story. You are so relatable, and it is the American dream, and it is proof. We're never that surprised when an immigrant from another country who comes and gets citizenship and goes through all that achieves anywhere close to what you achieved. But for an American to do it, it's like, whoa, the fire. There's so much to unpack. Okay. So what would you say? You got in real estate, your kids, the fact that you had kids and you had no choice made you get up and do what you were told. Who was the catalyst? Who showed you the way?
I actually, that's a great question, because I would ask anybody that's been in this business for a long time, who are your mentors? Who have been your mentors? And you'll find, at least for me, it's been very few. It's been very few. But I'll tell you a story that my oldest son said for me when those early years of real estate. Now, you have to remember that this is a kid from a single parent family, and he was the oldest. So on Christmas Eve, a lot of times, I was crying trying to put tricycles and nuts and bolts together. You can imagine how hard that is just for one person doing all that. But he said one of the fondest remembrances of his childhood was that he would come into my room and my door would be shut, and he would come into my room and he would see me down on my knees, and I'd be praying to make it make it through that time in my life, because that time in my life was very difficult. It's hard not to know that you're going to get a paycheck. It's hard not to know that. It's hard to live on faith that you're going to be able to turn this thing around when the market's not going exactly like what you want it to go for. And during the seasons, let's face it, this is a seasonal business. There's some seasons that are better. So I think the greatest thing about real estate is you can bring the juice. And I tell my agents, you got to bring it. You got to bring it. You got to bring the passion. But here's the thing: you never really arrive. You never arrive. You never get as good as you want to get. You always want to give a better product, a better service for the public. You just never arrive, and that's staying green, flourishing, growing, as opposed to been there, done that. I haven't got a T-shirt. I don't even like them, and I want to go everywhere.
My gosh, that right there is priceless. The reality that there's not, because if there were, sweetheart, I know you well enough to know you'd be out. If there was nothing left to grow, nothing left to learn, okay, what can I go learn? Because that's who you are. And is that the bulk of how you pulled yourself out of the reality of your childhood to become the woman that you sits before me today?
I would say that it was faith that did that. Faith, and that God loves me, and that he did an incredible thing for me. And that he gave me, prosperity. and such a gift. And I've tried to give back. And that's another thing that will drive you as the years go by, is just having the ability to give back to the people you love, to the charities you love, to the works you love. That's huge. Living is giving, and without giving, you're not living very much, because giving is such a big part of our lives and who we want to be.
Absolutely. So what is one of the fun things? I know you could probably do 20 podcasts on the cool things that you've gotten to do because of the wealth that he has blessed you with. But what's one that just pops to your mind immediately?
Well, I got to send my children to Europe. I've never been to Europe. And I stayed at home and worked, but they got my credit card and they went to Europe. And I considered that as part of their education. And that it turned out to be a great part of their education. And I was very blessed to be able to do that. And of course, I sent them all to the university. They all graduated. That was something I could have never done without real estate. So those are a couple of the fun things. And then fun things for me is I still love to travel. I enjoy that. So those are the fun things.
Okay. And are you giving yourself time to travel? Or are you still working 1 million hours a week?
I still work a lot because it's in my blood. I don't know how else to say it, except that I wouldn't know what to do if I wasn't doing at least a 40-hour week. Maybe I'll take a long weekend, a couple of months, or but really, some of my best work is when nobody else is in the office. I'm there on Saturday. And it's quiet and peaceful, and I can think. And I still work, and I want to work. I think, it's funny because I was hearing somebody saying, retirement is maybe it's an American idea. I don't know. But really, retirement kind of lets you withdraw from things. And I don't want to ever retire. I may change my structure of how I'm working, but I want to continue to work in an industry that's been so good to me, and that I want it to be some semblance of the same industry as I had the opportunity many years ago, 25, 30 years ago. I had an opportunity, and I want that opportunity to survive me, to go to other. There's another Marty Hampton out there that's a single parent that came from a questionable background. There's somebody else that needs to make it, and this industry needs to be that vehicle that gives them there. And I tell you, there's some forces, in my humble opinion, never to be so humble, that would take away this benefit as we go forward. And some of it, I believe, has come from large tech entities that are trying to take the trillions of dollars in American homeowners' pockets. I mean, that's a big chunk of money, and Wall Street wants that money, believe me, and they've made a lot of fancy ways to get it.
Yeah. And, as a professional in our industry, you have to give back, or you won't have an industry. So I love that you do that. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for your service. So right now you have a team of how many?
I think we have about 20.
About 20. Okay. And of all the people that you've had on teams and all the people that you have put your arm around and led into this incredible opportunity and led through it and poured your life into, who stands out as like, wow, that felt good, that you have influenced other than me?
Well, I think there's I've given some great agents an opportunity to learn the business, and then they flew away and did well on their own. I'm now in a kind of a company where hopefully they can stay and grow right here with the company that I'm in. But one agent that I've really enjoyed working with the last 5 or 6 years is my top listing agent, who was actually born in Holland. You talk about people coming from another country, and she was raised a lot in California, so she's not totally European, but she has just got the work ethic. We're in step. It's just a joy to work with her. Her name is Desiree White, and she is just tremendous at this business. And I'd like to say that maybe I've had a little bit. She had a lot of natural talent, Kara. So I don't know that I gave her that. And that is hard to find, isn't it, these days, is that natural talent. But she's got it. So she's encouraged me a lot.
Oh, that's wonderful. And there's, after doing it for so long, if you weren't pouring into, if you were just buying and selling homes and not pouring in and teaching people how to own a business, I don't know that it would keep your interest as much as it has.
Well, I'm pretty much out of production. I mean, I will go occasionally on a listing appointment, but I'm mostly out of production. So I send probably my top 4 or 5 agents to get listings on the people that call me because they've known my name in this area for such a long time. So we have the benefit of being the top sales agent for resale homes for about the last 8 years or so in our market.
Well, yeah, you have a lot of bragging rights, my friend. I mean, not that you should brag, right? You give credit where credit is due. Mm-hmm. You give it where it's due above you, and you give it where it's due beside you and your team and all that. However, sweetie, wow. I mean, you are a hardworking woman.
It's I was thinking of somebody today. I was having lunch with them, and they are quite successful in their own right. But I was thinking about the climb, and somebody told me a long time ago that it's harder to stay number one than it is to become number one. And that's a true statement.
I totally believe that. Why do you believe that is true?
Because to have the intensity to maintain, and with the market, you have to understand the market's changed. People have changed. What they expect has changed. Big tech, big money has come into our industry. So a lot of things have changed. So to be able to navigate those changes and still stay at the top of your game is, it's amazing, and it's gratifying, and you're grateful for it.
Yes. And I also think that the reason that a lot of people have the one-hit wonder is because people figure out that it was a facade, mm-hmm. that it wasn't, I can fake it for a year, but right. You can't fake it as long as you have, I think that people's true colors come out after the honeymoon is over, and, mm-hmm. and your true colors are just shining so bright and so beautifully. What is a day in your, a day in your life probably isn't relatable to most people. So let's go to this. What do you recommend for someone to do when they first wake up? What should their morning routine look like?
Yeah, the first thing I do when I wake up is I want to hear from God, and so I read my Bible. I mean, that's just me. Maybe if you're not that person, maybe you do something else that's positive. But I want to start my day above, where if I just let the day happen, it's not going to be pretty. But if I try to control that first half an hour, that first hour of my mind control, that helps. And then exercise. I think that's important to keep vigorous. I'd like to do more of that. In the past, I've been able to do more of that. But we've had some medical stuff in my family, so I hadn't been able to devote as much time to it. So, but that's something I really say that's a good thing to do, is continuous, steady exercise. And then, of course, you put your game face on. You take that shower, and then put your game face on. Don't put your face on and then get in the shower. It wouldn't turn. But you put your game face on and you get to it, and you go in to make something happen. And of course, you have an agenda. You've got your to-do list that's probably from the day before. So if you knock out your first 4 or 5 things, it'll happen. But for any agents, it's actually the contacts. It's who do I call? Who do I talk to about real estate? Even I had to do that today. So I had to catch up on some calls. So that's what I would do. And then if I were a brand new agent, I'd stay on that phone, because the phone is just magic, because you can go through so many people so quickly. And I'd stay on that phone. I'd learn how to talk to people in their best interest. And I'd learn how to not give up the first time they told me no. I'd just repackage it and ask them the same question over again. Because if you get discouraged on the first no, you're not going to stay in this business. You're just not going to. So you got to hit it again. And that's really, really important.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. This is all wisdom gold, gold. What about books? Any books that you recommend?
Well, I've always loved Think and Grow Rich. I think that's a book I read in my 20s. I really think that was uh, the thing that got me into real estate. But I think it's just a down to earth, basic book that just took somebody like me and said, look, if you have these things, if you can make a decision. Another thing, I'm crazy about the poem If by Kipling. I think at the end of that, Kipling wrote this poem to his son on the event of his 18th birthday. And for those of you who know the poem, he talks at the end of it. He said, if you can do all this, then you'll be a man, my son. I think you ought to put at the end, then you'll be a real estate agent, my friend.
I love that.
If you can walk with kings and not lose the common touch. And there's so many lines in that poem that just speak to me. I think that's something that I've really enjoyed. And of course, I love the man that's in the arena.
Oh, yes.
The one that's even if he achieves nothing by daring greatly, and that's what you've got to be willing to do, is fall down in front of other people, because you're not going to succeed at everything. And it's just your ability to get up and get yourself started again after you've toiled and not reaped is really, really important in any business, but especially in our business.
It is not for the faint of heart. That's for sure. That's for sure. However, it's an opportunity like no other. You've got food, shelter, and clothing. Those, if you're in one of those three businesses and you're really good at it, you're going to be just fine.
Right.
Oh gosh. All right. So what's next? What is your next? What do you want to do? What's on your bucket list?
I want to help more agents. I want to perfect. I don't think this business is ever going to get the majority of agents to come into it and see, to become a business owner, to own an 11,000 square foot building, to have a team of 20 or 30 agents. I don't think everybody that comes in real estate will be that. But it's a great opportunity. So I want people to know that opportunity is there. But yet, who am I to judge if it's a second income for somebody? That I always want that opportunity to be there for people, to have that second income, maybe to do something special for the kids that wouldn't have happened unless the wife had been working. So I guess my next thing is to, make those paths. I'd like the business path to be a little bit bigger. I'd like for there to be more mentors in this business. I could ask you, who've been your mentors in this business? Could you name 3 really quickly?
No.
See, isn't that a shame?
Yeah, it really is. I never thought of it that way. I never really thought of it that way. I'm a lot closer to being able to name 3 now than I ever have been, right? Because, when you get with the right company, and we are with different companies, but we're both with the right company for us.
Right.
And right. Both companies are very similar in their training and their growth, and they're teaching you not just how to sell real estate. They're teaching you how to have a business and how to have passive income so that you can live for the rest of your life and not have, it's very like-minded, I would say.
I agree. But, asking you that question, can I just deviate a few minutes and talk about the difference between men in business and women in business?
Please do.
I've most of the time that I've been in business, the big real estate companies out there have been owned by men, not by women. I mean, if you took a survey, and actually to this very day, I go to seminars, I go to masterminds of the top teams in America, and I'd say probably 80 to 90% are men. And so that makes me think a minute about the difference between our culture of how we raise our women and how we raise our young boys. Because I think men are much more prone to giving somebody else a hand up. I really do. And women seem much more protective and not willing to do that. And I'd like to change that. I'd like for women to get a little bit more testosterone. Dare I say that?
You did, girl. You did. I mean, come on. What's the worst that could happen?
You make a decision, and you make a decision and then you make it right. That's an old Marine saying. You make a decision, then you make it right. And in real estate, you're not going to always make the right decisions, but you got to be willing to take some risk if you really want to do it well, if you really want to make the maximum out of it.
One thing that has changed massively between the time you and I got into the industry and today is there are so many teams and there is so much more mentorship than there has ever been. What do you think that's going to do for our industry?
Well, I hope this is going to help our industry. Teams are definitely taken over in the last 10 years. That's for truth. But a lot of times the team has the goal is like the old time business owner is to make the one at the top rich. And I don't know that is really a worthy goal. I think you got to a rising tide lifts all boats. So I think you've got to be concerned about getting people on the right position so that they can prosper. And I've got a good friend in Iowa. Her name is Amy Wienans. She does a podcast. I want you to listen to her. The podcast is called You Are More by Amy Wienans. And it is a tremendous podcast for attitude. And of course, I think having that winning attitude, and that's just such a boring word. It's just overused for so many people, but it really is your bounce back ability in this business to make it great. And Amy has certainly got that winning attitude, and she can show you how to think of things. The perspective that you throw on things are really important. So I think more women ought to take advantage of helping other aspiring women do their best and go forward.
I love it. I'm jumping on your bandwagon with you. I will certainly, and we'll even link Amy's podcast to the bottom of yours, so people can check her out. That was very, very cool of you to give a shout out. Yeah, mindset. What percent of your success is due to your mindset?
Well, probably 99.9% of it.
Hello, McFly. There it is. Yeah, so how do you how do you guard your heart and your mind?
Well, sometimes the rose, the heart that's not willing to break is not going to break through to see the sunshine. You've got to be willing for your heart to break, because it will. There's customers that will turn against you. There's sellers that will, clients that turn against you. They'll think the wrong things about you when you've done nothing wrong. Back to my point, if you can, the whole world's doubting you, and you can make exception for their doubting too. So your mindset is everything in this business.
Yeah, everything in this business and in your life too. My goodness, you bring about what you think about, and it is so true. It is so true. Girlfriend, I could do this with you all day long. What words of wisdom do you have for our audience? Mostly entrepreneurs, not all real estate necessarily, but mostly entrepreneurs. That you gave a podcast that was great. Do you have any other podcasts? You gave Think and Grow Rich is just like, come on, guys. How many have you read it more than once?
Oh yeah, I read it every 10 years or so. That's for sure. And
there you go.
Harder every time I read it. So
there you go.
Parting advice. You're going to be here for a very short time. Make an impact on the people that are around you. Try to help them. Try to reach out to somebody else and help them along the way. And that's the very best thing that you can do with your life.
I love it. That sounds like Zig Ziglar in a can. Thank you so much for being with us. We really, really appreciate your time.